Well, welcome everybody who is tuning in today on this LinkedIn Live. My name is Brad Sims. I'm president of Capital Technology University. And today we're going to talk about the importance of education for emergency services. And with us today, we have Mr. Devin Flannery. He's the fire captain at South San Francisco Fire Department. And Dr. Reginald Freeman. He is the fire chief city for the city of Oakland, and a doctorate alum of us here at Capital Tech. And we appreciate having both you guys on here today. And so I'll just turn the floor over, and since we don't have much time, I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Freeman if you want to kick it off and talk about a little bit about what you see in the education and how it all works with the emergency services and the value of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sims, and it's such an honor to be here with you and Captain Flannery at South San Francisco. Certainly our fire service family across the Bay. You know, I'm partial to the East Bay, but we love our fire service family over there in San Francisco as well as South San Francisco. So for me, Doc, it's simple. You know, my journey started in the fire service in 2001. And so when I look back at what my goals were when I first got into the fire service, which was first and foremost to be a great firefighter. You know, learn the craft, be exceptional, not be the weakest link. That was my focus and that was my priority. When other opportunities started presenting themselves, you know, I started recognizing the fact that if I wanted to ascend up the organizational ladder, then I had to have three things: the appropriate training, the appropriate certifications, as well as credentials, and then, of course, the education. And so when you look at the fire service, in the 70s, it was totally appropriate for a fire chief to have a high school diploma. In the 80s, that benchmark got moved to an associate's degree. In the 90s, it was a bachelor's. 2000s, the expectation is that fire chiefs are going to have a master's. And now fast forward to today, numerous of my friends and colleagues that are fire chiefs or even senior officers within the organization, they all have doctorates. And so for me, it was a matter of keeping up with the times. As our profession evolves and the goalposts get moved, we have to keep up with those expectations.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little about my beginnings in the fire service. So I started as an LA County Fire Explorer in 1997. I was going and doing ride-alongs at the fire station and knew that that's what I wanted to do. So my direction that was given to me back then in the 90s was go to paramedic school and you'll get a job. So I went to paramedic school, took about a year, worked for about a year, and they got hired really young. So I started off in the fire service. And the big thing when I came on was experience. You need experience. So for 12, 13 years, I got lots of experience. And then I kind of had my fire midlife crisis. And I thought, what am I going to do in the future? What impact am I going to have on the fire service? So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go get more certifications, like Chief Freeman said, and get more education, because those are two different things. So I started getting my associate's degree because they give you a little pay raise at work. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I met someone who's like, hey, you should go get your bachelor's degree. Got my bachelor's degree and started to spread out nationally taking classes. So I went to the National Fire Academy and I got into the managing officer program. And when I was there, all my instructors had PhDs. And I thought, that is really interesting. Why would a firefighter need a PhD? Why? And I had a great conversation with Dr. Dennis O'Neill. And he was a very good mentor. I was very impressed. He could sit down and take an hour with me. He's a very important person. Take an hour with me and talk to me. And we were talking, and I asked him, why would I need a PhD? And I was holding the book in my hand, and he goes, who do you think writes our fire books? And I'm like, wow. And I had that epiphany of, that's what I want to do. I want to write books. I want to enhance the fire service. I want to bridge those gaps with processes and decision-making. And that's how I got in my journey of where I'm at. And I'm about a year into a 3-year program. So I still got a little ways to go, but I'm enjoying every moment of it.
And how do you guys see the differences really in whether it's a certification or a degree or advanced degree or training? How do you consider each element as a different piece of the education process?
It's a great question, Dr. Sims. And, for me, the way I see it in the fire service, right? We look at competency has always been equivalent to tenure. So if you didn't have 20, 25 years on the job, you didn't have the right to have an opinion. That's always been our culture. But today, competency, just because of for the first time in our history in the United States, we have 5 different generations in the workplace. And so with that, I'm a member of Gen X. There's 40 million Gen Xers in the United States. There's 80 million millennials. So as much as we want to talk about the uniqueness of the millennials, is probably the best way that I could put it, they're going to be our bosses. And it's our job to ensure that they're properly prepared prior to them getting those promotions. And so for the fire service, that competency, going back to that, is looked at as one's training, education, and experience. There's no replacement for experience, but where you may lack it, you can make up for through your certification training, and then of course your education. So for the training side, typically there's no better training other than doing the job and getting that experience, but there are also IFSAC and Pro Board certification classes that one can take to be more knowledgeable in whatever topic it may be. So fire instructor, NFPA 1041, fire officer, NFPA 1021, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have the credentialing side of the house. So Center for Public Safety Excellence, you can get your fire officer designee, your chief fire officer designation, your fire marshal designation, and our newest one, of course, is the public information officer designation. And then with the FESHI model that's led by the National Fire Academy, Fire and Emergency Services Higher Education, company officers, it's recommended that they pursue and obtain their associate's degree. Captains, they get their bachelor's, and then of course, chief officers, battalion chiefs and above, they would start looking at their master's degree, especially the senior officers, the assistant and deputy chiefs, as well as the fire chiefs. And so taking a little bit of those 3 components and making sure that you look at every aspect of what you should be doing and how you should be doing it, so you can exploit those learning and growth opportunities so that they can then become a strength, is what we're all about in the fire service. And so having that roadmap, if you will, is critically important. But the days of your tenure being equivalent to your competency in the fire service, those days are long gone.
If anybody's listening currently while we're live, you can also enter a question in the comments section. So if you are getting into, let's say, the firefighting as it's starting, you're going to go to the academy, right? And you're going to learn the basics of it all. Is there, when you come out of the academy, and I don't know enough about the details of the educational process besides learning what you really have to do to be a good firefighter, is it a certification, or do you take that and move that on to like a degree?
Cap?
Okay, yeah, I'll take this one. So another one of my positions is I teach at the CR College Fire Academy. So I work with the state and get new students certified, so as adjunct faculty. So when you go through the Fire Academy, it's a couple hundred hours. You learn structural firefighting, wildland firefighting, hazmat incidents, and then you also take your firefighter 2. So after that couple hundred hours, you do some testing. You get certificates from the state, and then you can then go get an employment for 6 months to get your firefighter 2. And that's how you get your certification. And that's when we talk about with the certifications. There's also paramedic school. There's always been a need for EMTs or paramedics in the fire service, because that is about 80% of what we do. So we're always looking to bring on new applicants with a paramedic license if they can. And that can vary from, if you go to a full-time program, 6 to 9 months to 2 to 3 years, depending on where you go. So, yeah.
I do have, let's see if I can open it up here, a little slide to present. Let's see. I'm just going to bring this over. Hang on a second. All right. So I happen to throw up here Dr. Freeman's dissertation. You can download it for free and read it if you like. You can go to proquest.com. You can search for Dr. Freeman's name, or you can search for the title of his dissertation, which was called Exploring Servant Leadership Behaviors of Career Fire Department Officers, a Qualitative Descriptive Design Study. So let's talk a little bit about that. What led you to, in your education process as well, think that this was going to be a needed area of research at your doctoral level?
Thanks so much, Doc, for that. And just a selfless plug, anyone doing research, please feel free to cite this work. It is very universal. I don't care if you're talking about unmanned aerial devices or custodial services, cite this dissertation so I can get credit. No, this right here, Dr. Sims, my passion, of course, is people and leading. And so my Bachelor of Arts is in leadership. And as I mentioned earlier, with 5 different generations in the workplace, you know, the 3 more common styles of leadership, democratic, laissez-faire, and autocratic. You know, for the longest time, the fire service was very much autocratic. And if you were to try to practice that leadership style today, you would fail miserably, especially in the fire service, just because with everyone having their own unique needs. So looking at the gap in the literature, I saw an opportunity to really hone in on what really influences and inspires firefighters to go above and beyond. Because as a people-centric and service-oriented profession, you have firefighters that will come to work and do their job, and then you have firefighters that will work for you. And to me, I really say to individuals that that's the difference between someone just being in a position of authority and someone who's exercising leadership. I don't want people to do their job for Chief Freeman. I want people to work for Reggie because they respect Reggie, because my behaviors has inspired and influenced them to go above and beyond and to take care of me as someone who they respect. And so the results were very fascinating. I use Alameda County Fire and Emergency Services in regards to my samples with company officers, of course, and to no surprise at all, their leadership was very much well respected, especially the fire chief at Alameda County. And so the results of the study were very fascinating and very much appreciative to have the opportunity to talk about not only that research, but then also servant leadership in general.
Yeah, excellent. It's certainly when you complete major work like that, it's a lot of work to get to the completion. You're satisfied, you know, you're done with it, and you know, hopefully, if you're like me, you never have to do it again after you're done. So
That's right.
It's a process. Devin, thinking about the positions that you've had through your career, and as you moved up, I guess kind of highlight what you thought was, you know, the most enjoyable, and also did you feel as though that led you into trying to achieve more education because you enjoyed an aspect of that which led you further in your career?
Yeah. So, you know, when I started as a firefighter paramedic. For the longest time, I thought, you know, this is the bee's knees. This is where it's at, and this is where, you know, it rubber meets the road, and I can make an impact every day. We are a transporting agency, so I got to work on an ambulance, and you know, some of the best fires I ever went to were when I was on the ambulance. Some of the hardest calls I ever had are when I was on the ambulance, whether it was delivering a kid or returning pulses on a cardiac arrest. And for years, I thought, okay, this is great. This is great. And then when I decided that I wanted to go for company officer, and I started to look at those elements that Chief Freeman was talking about, education and training and certification, I knew that it was more than just a piece of paper. And I always thought when you walked into a promotional assessment center that they said, oh, you're a certified chief officer. That's great. I didn't realize that they're looking more at the application of it. How are you applying these things? How are you making a difference? If you talk about community risk reduction, what are you going to do as a company officer at that level? And I got really challenged into trying to think of how can I apply it at a higher level. And so each degree I got made me think of that higher level, that Bloom's taxonomy, right? So how am I going to apply it at these higher levels? And that's where the excitement has gotten me to where, for the doctorate, being able to synthesize and create something. And, like Chief Freeman did with servant leadership is definitely one of the things I'm looking at for my dissertation, and looking at the lack of required leadership training in the state of California. We don't require or offer a lot to a lot of agencies unless you have someone who's a great leader like Chief Freeman. So trying to expound upon those thoughts and those processes as I go down my journey.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah.
Dr. Sims, Captain Flannery said something that really hit home, because normally when I talk about training, education, and experience, I always follow that up with competency. True competency is your application of your training, education, and experience. So very, very well said by Captain Flannery.
And Dr. Freeman, I believe that you also now chair some students in the online PhD program. How is your experience being switched from being a student to being the chair, helping others get through the doctorate program?
It's a very fulfilling role. Very much humbled, honestly, to be in that position, because I understand the importance and the significance of it. In my journey of earning my PhD, I had several chairs. Some were better than others, and so I know what it feels like to have a chair who is unresponsive or really disconnected. So I try my best to ensure that our doctoral learners don't have those same feelings that I had. Really learned a lot from Dr. McAndrew, who he was my second chair at Capitol Tech, and really just flat out a genius as it pertains to the dissertation process and being able to coach and to mentor and to guide. And so, I try to use that same philosophy and mentality with our doctoral learners that I have. And the process, as you are giving that coaching, that mentoring, and that guidance, you also continue to learn. Whether it's I'm prepping for a meeting with one of our doctoral learners, to talk about methodology, or if I need to try to assist the doctoral learner in troubleshooting a specific problem, throughout the entire process, you are consistently learning, even as a chair. And so I'm just very much honored to even have that opportunity.
Yeah, Dr. McAndrew is the dean of the doctoral programs here at Capitol Tech, and he's helped personally. I think he may over the years have had close to around 200 students he directly supervised. So he has a lot of experience, and it is a relationship that students build between themselves and their chair that helps them get through the program. Another area that Capitol Tech is expanding right now is the master's degrees, and it's specifically the ones that are called Masters of Research, which basically is a majority of your coursework is doing a thesis, which is very close to a dissertation. And therefore, we're allowing more students apply specifically their current job needs to work through a thesis than to take more classes just on a subject area that may not help them. And so, some of the doctoral chairs may also be thesis chairs, just because that's the need of the students that we are trying to help here. So we're on the East Coast, so Capitol Tech's 15 miles north of Washington, D.C., and you guys are on the West Coast. I did live in the West Coast for a while. Whenever the jobs I had was at the construction management at the Arco refinery off the 405 there in Southern California. So I spent several years out in the West Coast, and actually I like the time zone better, West Coast versus East Coast. I don't know why. Maybe because I feel like, at least you're getting a break when the East Coast finally shuts down and you get the light going on. But, like you guys, I went through a time where when I got out of actually college, I went to school for construction management. And here at Capital Tech, one thing that I've always believed in is if you're going to college, you're going to go to college to get a good career. Otherwise, why invest your money on it? And we only offer programs here at Capital Tech that have an ROI on them. At the bachelor's level, I just will mention for those listening, we even guarantee our bachelor students on campus that if they don't make a minimum of $50,000 starting salary, we'll cover their and their parents' student loan quarter payments until they exceed it. And we also guarantee them that if they don't have a career 90 days upon graduation in their field, they can come back and get a certificate in another area for free. Now, why we can do that is we only offer degrees designed around industry needs, a career-focused university. And that's what I like. That's what I went to school for. I will say that when I graduated with my bachelor's, I thought, I am never going back to school again. I thought I was done. 2 years later, I thought, maybe I should try an MBA. Maybe that's what I should do. I don't know why it took me 2 years. So I had applied to get into an MBA program. And just as I was accepted, I was working at the Savannah River site in South Carolina. I decided to take a job working in Boston for a large engineering firm. So I didn't get to start it. But what I thought about education then was that had I just got in a program, and the only thing I did was to complete one class a semester, in that 2-year period that I didn't do anything, I would have almost been done. And here I was starting from the beginning. So I didn't think it through really about the investment in the time. And I did have a person when I was working in California, an executive from Brown and Root Braun, which was a large engineering firm for industrial construction, who had an MBA, and he helped me think I really needed to do it because just like you two have seen, the bar has been raised. He said, during layoffs, he believed that was one of the reasons that his job was safe because he invested in the time. Now, I mean, I guess you could argue he didn't know for sure, but he thought it was a value, and that kind of led me to think harder. Okay, I'm eventually going to do this, but again, we're lifelong learners, no matter what we're doing, really now, and that's the way that I think most folks can appreciate it. Is once you get a certificate, which are great, like let's say whether it was my background in construction industry or your firefighters out there. If you get a certificate, it can be in another area. You could get just a certificate in, say, something like cybersecurity. It's going to last you for the rest of your life. It's going to make you very valuable if you ever decide to move into another profession. And so certificates, in my opinion, are just as valuable as the degree area, because if you're getting something that has a huge market demand, it's there for years. And I don't know what your experience with the employees and your needs, but for many years, all employers across all market segments call me up, whether it's construction, facilities, big telephone companies, everybody. Where can we get more employees? We need more employees, and that's the challenge. Is really how do you produce enough people that are in the areas that industry needs, the technical areas, the technical management areas, because they want employees that have some working knowledge of their industry market. They don't need to be specifically know every single detail about it, but they need people who understand it enough that they can talk to the other folks and explain what I need. What can I do? Have meetings that you can get a group together and you're all kind of talking the same language. And there's a huge market out there for employees in all these technical areas that are across the board. And so anybody who wants to transition, your emergency services is a wonderful area, as well as the other ones that I just mentioned, whether it's aviation, shortage of pilots out there. It's just incredible where you can go if you are interested in these type of hands-on learning skill sets that start from the competencies, just like you train firefighters, to later on the higher education degrees that you may end up with a doctorate. So, Dr. Freeman, we're getting near the end, so I'm going to give you next to the last word of the education and the relevancy to what you think could best help any of the folks out there listening in the emergency services area.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sims. And again, such an honor to be here with you and Captain Flannery. So in closing, from my perspective, as it pertains to higher education and emergency services, when I first got into the fire service, I really could care less about becoming a fire chief, let alone that I ever foresee that I would hold a PhD. But that is the way the cookie crumbled, and I embraced the opportunities that were placed in front of me. And so for those who may have a different perspective, to where you do have ambitions to be an executive fire officer within your organization, just know that higher education is not only going to make you a better candidate for that, but just make you a better officer, period, a better chief, period. In the city of Oakland, my budget is $188 million. Now, can I manage that $188 million budget with a high school diploma? Sure. There are plenty of smart people who do not have degrees. However, if I were assistant chief or a deputy chief competing for the fire chief role with that same responsibility of having to manage a $188 million budget as well as lead people, which one do you think would be more desirable candidate-wise? The candidate with the high school diploma who's very competent, who has the experience, but not necessarily the advanced degrees, or that person who has their bachelor's, has their master's, or has their doctoral degree? And I think we all know the answer to that question. So higher education, it assists you with accomplishing your goals. I think first and foremost, it just makes you a better professional, and you can use your degree, whether it be on the job in the fire service or in any of your other personal endeavors, business-wise. Most of us firefighters, we do something else other than fight fire. I know at one point in my fire service career, I had 4 jobs. So, use that degree to help you both personally and professionally. It certainly will not hurt you. Thank you again for the opportunity, Dr. Sims.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Devin. I'll close it out, but I'll give you next to the last word, Devin.
Fantastic. So I'll tell the group something. When I got out of high school, my GPA was 2.6. I looked it up the other day and I laughed and I thought, wow, 2 years after that, I had one of the best careers in the world. So I got lucky. I went to technical trade training. I got what I needed and I got in the profession. And little did I know how important that higher education is. The more you move up, especially in the food chain of the fire service, for decision making. And something that always scared me was, how am I going to have that credibility in a court of law if I'm questioned, if someone gets hurt or something happens and we get sued? What is my credibility going to be on the stand? And knowing that if I have that PhD, if I have that doctoral degree, the credibility that's brought into it and being able to use those processes to make good decisions. So hopefully everyone listening to this can realize if a guy with 2.6 GPA can do it, you can do it too. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank both of you for being on this live program. And I just want to make one quick plug for the university. So we do have some scholarships for first responders. So if you're a first responder, you can obtain our master's or doctoral degrees, which are completely online, for a 20% discount. And if you have children, your children can come to campus and automatically are awarded a $5,000 a year scholarship for doing one of the bachelor's degree on campus. So please take advantage of that if you like. And I'm sure that Dr. Freeman or Devin would also welcome any questions on LinkedIn. You can find them on LinkedIn. I know I'm happy to answer questions too. It's a convenient social media platform that you can ask questions. So but please feel free to connect with us in any of these topical areas that you want to look to. And once again, I want to thank everybody today, and take care, everyone.